Welcome to DeFi Expectations. I'm your host, Fry, and this is our first episode in our Borderless Living series, where we talk about what it really means to break free from the legacy world, take your sovereignty seriously, and design a life around freedom, finance, and future building. Before we get started, this episode is for education and commentary only. Nothing here is legal, tax, or financial advice. We are not encouraging anyone to violate any laws. We're discussing ideas, global structures, and technology, and any examples are for discussion and critique. Today, I'm joined by Shawna, the founder of MoveOverseasNow.com, an incredible resource for Americans and global citizens who want to get out of the grind and build a free life abroad. We're also joined by my good friend, Cryptopher Robin, to talk about decentralized finance and how these principles extend even deeper into your finance and tax strategies. So, first of all, thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you on the show. Uh, Thank you so much. And to get started, I'm just going to allow both of you to introduce yourselves because I'm sure I will butcher the job, and I want you to be able to explain yourselves as well as you want to, what your passion is about borderless living, or why you're here to discuss these subjects today. So, Shauna, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having us and having myself. That video was so cool in the beginning, this promo video. I was just dancing in the background. That was so much fun. So, yeah, I'm Shauna from LA, moved abroad for the first time in 2015. Then again in 2016, came back, worked corporate, and moved to Barcelona in 2016, Barcelona, Spain. Europe is my favorite place in the world and just love the community, love the vibe. So different, less stress, get out of the hustle bustle, really live better for less. So basically make American income, live in Europe. That's my whole thing. And pretty much let me tell you guys quick story. Dad gets really sick with stage 4 lung cancer in 2021. I have to come back to the US after living in Spain for 6 years. Came back, took care of him. He dies a month later. And then I say to myself, why am I waiting on starting this business that I've always wanted to do, which is helping Americans, like showing people that they can actually do this. It's not just Americans. I have clients from like Canada, Australia, wherever you're at. The visa requirements are the same for all these countries. But I attract Americans because I'm American myself. And I thought, let me just start this business. Like, I want to help people. So I founded Move Overseas Now, or you can find me at moveoverseasnow.com. And this is where I help thousands through my online events and coaching programs. And I pretty much help them through the whole process, like A to Z. It's kind of like your one stop shop. Everything from, it is very emotional. Like, you have a support system. I'm the support system. I have a community to exactly how to get approved for all these different visas. A lot of people think it's really complicated, but most of us actually just do it on our own. You don't need to hire a relocation agency or this legal company that's charging like 7 grand. You actually can just go on the consulate website, see the exact checklist, and then just start checking the boxes and then do your consulate appointment. Of course, it's a little bit stressful. You have to gather all the documents, but that's essentially what I help people with is that. And I think the passion behind that, again, like kind of what I shared, was guys, we don't have that much time on this earth. Like, I just started with my whole dad thing. He died at 63. Like, what are we waiting for? So I guess that's kind of where the passion mixed with, oh my gosh, like the awareness of that we are not here for very long kind of helped me to start this and just put it out there. And it's thriving, guys. Like, Business Insider, Yahoo. I have articles with them. They reach out to me to get stories from my past clients that have moved. Like, it's insane how many people are moving abroad right now. That's me. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So, thank you for sharing. And I love what you share too, as well, about we don't have so much time on this earth. And my grandfather, he actually traveled a lot as well, later in age, probably from like his late 50s and up. But like you mentioned, you never know when your time's going to come, and I'm so sorry to hear about that as well. But it's so true, because people will wait until later in life to make these journeys, and they're missing out on the experience of a lifetime in the golden years of their life. Additionally, there's a lot of reasons a person might feel that their home country, and I'm not going to focus on America, I'm not going to talk about politics today, but there's a lot of reasons like why you might not feel at home where you're at home, right? And you might want to travel, but we always feel like we don't have enough money to do it, we don't have enough time, we're not prepared, etc. But people spend their whole lives waiting to get prepared for a change, only to find that they no longer have the time to actually like go on an adventure and experience something new. So that's particularly like what I'm really excited to talk with you about today. So thank you for sharing.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, Robin, if you want to go ahead and jump in about like why you're joining today and what this means to you.
Yeah, I still live in the U.S. right now, and I'm not a huge fan. um, one of the things is, I up until pretty recently, I would have had basically no input on this, I suppose. But I just happened to have come back from Spain pretty recently, and also my wife is a dual citizen, so the more that things progress, the more that I'm considering it and throwing that randomly into the conversation, because I work myself endlessly. Sometimes, I mean, like I last week I had, I think, a 60-hour workday.
Jeez.
Yeah,
That's great. You didn't what?
60 hours straight. Yeah, I went to the bathroom.
Oh my
I went to
gosh.
the bathroom sometimes. But that
Sometimes.
was that was it. Yeah,
Rob,
sometimes.
this is a no-no in Europe. This is a
Yeah,
no-no.
yeah, I know. And like my time like in Barcelona, everything was so chill. Like
No,
everyone
it's
was
so
just like
flowy.
wandering around, walking their dogs. Everything was closed all the time because everyone was just hanging out. And if it wasn't, everyone was just relaxing. I found everyone extremely friendly. I did my best to try and speak, Spanish when I could, but they were still very welcoming, knowing that I was trying and everything like that. And I'm just like, God, I'm so tired of killing myself in
Mm-hmm.
the grind all the time, even though like I'm grinding much better than most.
Right.
It's like I'm still grinding constantly, and I would like to be able to do that less and feel like I need to do that less because I'm sure, both of you understand that as an American, your self worth a lot of the time is tied to your job and your output and things like that. So I'm sure that that's something that's hard to tear apart and reconstruct when you do move somewhere where that's not the main focus.
It's a
It's
whole
something,
detox process for sure,
yeah,
Robin.
it's
Yeah.
something I would definitely like to do. And then I could spend more of my time dedicating myself to projects that I actually believe in and want to work on versus things that I feel like I need to take the opportunity when they arise. So
Definitely.
yeah, it's definitely now more of a thought than it ever would have been in my life.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing. I mean, I think a lot of people listening are going to resonate with this because that's the
Mhm.
other thing is the society, the way let's say American society, but there's a lot of other English speaking countries that are feeling the same way. Um, at least in America, we don't have much else to look for. Like if we look outside, I don't know where you guys are right now, but if you look at your street, I mean, is it beautiful? Are there people walking around? Do you know your cappuccino guy that makes your cappuccino? The fruit lady, the bread people. You literally can just sit there and talk to them, practice your
Mhm.
Spanish, your French, your Italian, whatever. Like we don't have that. Like unless you live in like Echo Park or some bougie, expensive part of a city, but it's like that's a norm there, and so like we're trapped inside of our houses doing
Yeah.
our beautiful projects that we're doing, not saying they're bad, but then it consumes us and then we're missing out on all the other buckets of life.
Mhm.
No, I,
Yeah.
I agree 100%. There's not a sense of community. And it's hard because, I'm in Tbilisi, Georgia, to answer your question, Shauna. And, what brought me here was very much a spiritual journey. And it's interesting because I could talk about it in terms of, I came here to offshore. I had entities that I felt would be more free here. For example, I have my ticketing company, Cheers Finance, which at its core is a ticketing company, but it's also built on blockchain. And there was a lot of freedoms I was able to take advantage of by incorporating overseas, of course, right? And of course, there's an element of my business that deals with offshoring as well. But the bigger component to what was going on with me at the time, when I decided to go on this adventure, was I had done everything kind of right, I guess, in terms of how you're supposed to live, how you're supposed to be successful. But I started to look at the people that were my role models, and not that I looked down on them for their decisions. They did the right thing, and they're honorable men and women. But it was like my father. He dedicated years of his life to Safeway, and the minute that he had an injury, and they just literally fired him, got rid of him like he was just another number, like he didn't matter. And fortunately, he still has a pension, but he put years of his life into that couldn't be quantified by mere dollars, and certainly what he's been paid from that has not been worthwhile. Additionally, my grandfather, one of the last people I visited before I left, he had spent his whole life managing his own business in the paper business. He also worked with various clients before that, doing 401ks, putting savings accounts together, filing his taxes perfectly honestly for years. And he was actually found a discrepancy related to basically somebody who manages taxes with him. I don't want to get into the details of that, but the main point is he had put away enough money to retire, and now he's looking at having to work in his late 70s. But
Ridiculous.
it is, and it's sad because he hasn't gotten the opportunity to travel and do all these different things. And for me personally, I was going through a divorce. I had a home. I had saved up money and bought a house. I was supposed to be living the American dream, and it turned into a nightmare. And
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, I couldn't trust my own partner. I could not trust my own home. I was looking at inflation ravaging the country, paying more and more for groceries. Whether or not I could afford my house payment, could I afford to pay for milk the next month? It's just you watch this chaos happen and you think, is there not some other place where things might be different? So
Yes.
I decided to try something different, and I escaped to Georgia and basically expanded on my business to add this kind of offshoring component. But again, I think that what we see on the surface is less important than what's actually occurring underneath it, which to me is a spiritual journey. Are we
Yeah.
feeling fulfilled by our lives? Are we feeling like we're just trying to stack dollars? We're just trying to get through. We're just trying to make it through tomorrow? Or are we having an actual experience?
For
And
sure.
yes,
Yes.
and that's why I came here and let go of everything that I knew. I went through my divorce, I dealt with that. I took my daughter, we dealt with all this bureaucracy to get her passport and come over here. And now we're living in this beautiful place where suddenly I go to the store and people aren't trying to upsell me. I try to buy a bottle of water, and the store clerk tells me, that the drinking water, the tap water is perfectly good here.
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit different than what I'm used to. And you can just tell in these vulnerable moments where people aren't trying to take advantage of you, but they're trying to help you. Not that I haven't had moments where people try to take advantage of me too. We always deal with that. But
Right.
you just realize that there's a whole different world outside of what you've known, what you've been raised with. And with America particularly, we're very focused on American geography, American history, American culture. Like, why do you
Yes.
need to go somewhere else? It's all here. We've got the oceans, we've got the mountains, we've got everything. Why do you need to go somewhere else? But
Yep.
you experience something else, and you meet the people, and you're like, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. I want to experience this. And that's really what I'd love to dive into today, beyond like the questions that we're going to tap into, Shauna and Robin. Like, what are we doing this for? What is the purpose And like, what is the greater reason why we're here, and why, if we're going to be here, if we're going to be souls on a journey, why shouldn't we explore the planet and try to see what other beliefs exist, what other ideas on government, on people, on existence, religion, etc., might exist to like break the mold of what we're doing here.
For
So
sure.
yeah, and so I guess with that being said, I'll just go ahead and start off with you, Shauna, and just start out with a pretty simple question. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but like, what was the tipping point for you personally to pursue life overseas? Like, what made you like really consider this as a good idea?
Well, this is all great stuff that you're sharing, and I think it's so important because we don't talk about this enough. This needs to be all over the place. I mean, so if you're listening to this, like this is real insights from people that have actually uprooted their lives, and we just want to share this with you. So we hope it's helpful. But my reason was really, parents didn't have savings for me for college. They never went to college themselves. So I was told at 13 that I need to get a scholarship to go to university. So I started playing volleyball. I got an athletic scholarship to go to Washington State University. I played D1 volleyball, planted that seed very young, and I ended up it manifested, right? So played D1. Um, so cutthroat. Like, again, back to this whole America thing. Our society is very competitive. And when you move abroad, you will realize that life doesn't have to operate like that. We're always and what I mean by competitiveness, we're judging ourselves. We're getting on top of ourselves, so much pressure. Oh, I need to be better than this person. Volleyball. Oh my gosh. Putting women through the stuff that they put us through, like that should be illegal. I mean, it was insane. It's not torture, but don't cross the line quick enough. You're going to do it again. And then I'm having an asthma attack because I have anxiety. It's mental health. So anyways, I was through this crazy journey. Not saying I didn't, I played I played at some of the best schools in the country. Sure, it was cool, but it was really not good for my nervous system. And I knew ever since I was in high school, I never fit in. Went to school in LA that was super clicky, people wearing brand name jeans, like had a weird, I always knew like I'm supposed to travel, like I'm supposed to explore. So I went to Washington State thinking, oh, let me go out of state. Might be different. End of the day, it's the same-ish, different day. Yes, the Pacific Northwesterners, I felt like they were a little bit kinder than what I was used to in LA, but still, it's like I was scratching the surface. I was like, okay. So I said, after volleyball, I need to get the hell out. Like this is too much. Like this is too much stress, too much competitiveness. I was a straight A student. So I studied abroad. And that's what opened it up for me. Is I was like, holy shit. People are literally living off of 1,000 euros per month. Like, how is this possible? I was a student, broke, had a host family. She cooked for me every single day. I paid 600 euros to live with this family. Okay. Was eating out every day, having wine every day, having tapas. And I was a student, and I had a stipend from my mom that was very little. And I was traveling on the weekends. I was going to Dublin, and then I was going to London, and $100 round trip. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, how is everybody so connected, so much community? Everybody knows each other on the street. I'm eating out every day. How is this possible? Go back to the US. Individualistic society, houses spread out. Oh, here we go. Here's the hamster wheel thing. And I experienced that for a year and a half, corporate. And I said, let me go back to Europe. Like, this is what needs to happen. So I put in my 2 weeks at the corporation, got a little bit of savings, moved to Europe, did a master's until I ran out of money. And then I was like, all right, here's where I start my entrepreneur journey. Started managing social media accounts, taught beach volleyball on the beach, taught English. I was making more than a Spanish person. I was thriving. Had a snowboarding pass at the local mountain, partying every weekend. It was great. And I was only making $1,700 a month. And that's still possible. The average salary in Spain, do you know the minimum wage is 600 euros per month? Portugal's minimum wage is 920 euros per month. What are we doing? Like, sure, you can't live in like Lisbon or Porto, but like if you literally had $1,000 a month, you're doing side hustles, you're like, okay, I want to grow this shit. Don't be growing that in America. Go move abroad and grow it where the expenses are going to be slashed by like what? We're paying like 1/4 of what we're used to paying back home. Grow that business abroad and do it slowly. Have your coffee, go sit on a terrace for 2 hours and make sure your nervous system is okay while you're building the business. So the spiritual journey comes in that sense, is that, oh wow, I don't have to operate so fast. I can build this business or do this thing that I'm doing, but like I don't have to feel like there's a gun out at my head. And that's really once I started getting into the groove of my environment and like watching how the old ladies move around, the Spanish people, oh, they're taking their time. Nobody's, oh my God, I have another meeting. Sorry, got to go hang out with these other friends. Bye. It's not like that. Everybody's welcome. Your friends are over there. They're texting, oh, tell them to come over here. It's a party. Come to the terrace. Come to the square. Like, we're not, you know what I mean? We're not like, I think the biggest thing spiritually was inclusivity versus exclusivity, and like really feeling that I'm not being judged. I don't feel judged by society, and I don't feel judged by myself now. That was the big spiritual shift for me.
That's the biggest thing I would say, is probably not being judged by yourself, because I'm definitely my worst critic by far, considerably so.
Me too, for sure.
What was your experience with the spiritual side?
Yeah, like I mean, for me personally, like what's been wonderful about it is just the shift of expectation, right? So you talk about things like, of course, you can look at it in the economic sense, like I'm willing to travel, I'm willing to do these different things, and I can make a lot of more money by being stagnant, by being stuck in one place where I'm having to spend a lot in a place where I'm going to consume a lot, and America is a great example of that, right? It was interesting because there was this discussion that came up on X, and they were talking about Trump getting rid of the income tax, right? And it was actually a conservative outlet, which I thought was relatively interesting. But they were like attacking the concept, right? Conservatives were. And they were talking about the fact that if they are going to get rid of an income tax, they're going to up the consumption tax, right? And we're already seeing about how much they're going to add a consumption tax. And that means that on top of what people are paying more for goods through like tariffs and things like that, taxes that they pay on the end of the year, they're going to be paying a consumption tax on top of that, which means, goods could be costing as much as 50% more once you factor in tariffs and consumption tax, right? So basically, like, there's no way around this issue as long as you're living in America, because you're going to be spending so much more just to live. And then you look at other factors, right? So you look at the way people live, and you look at the fact that you can go out and have a coffee and it costs less money. And it's also like, I'm not going to be sitting here staring at a screen, like stuffing food into my face, trying to get as much work done as I possibly can. But I'm literally like taking a sip of coffee, I'm relaxing, and guess what? Wow, maybe I don't have my computer in front of me. Oh my God, maybe I'm going to actually enjoy what this coffee tastes like. And my God, I'm paying less for it and it actually tastes really good, but like, and that doesn't sound spiritual inherently, but I think people don't feel anymore. I think people don't taste anymore. They don't understand. They don't understand what their coffee tastes like, what their food tastes like. You go to other places, and it's not just the nature of government regulation of what goes into food, it's that people won't even tolerate the crap that we put into our food in America, right? So you come over to these other places, people are healthier, they're eating better, they're more active, but at the same time, they're willing to just sit in a coffee shop and just be like, hey, I'm gonna meet somebody. I'm gonna actually enjoy a discussion with my date without looking at my phone, or worrying about my laptop or whatever shit I have to do today. And like, again, these are all just task based, right? What does this have to do with spirituality? I'm sorry, but if you're not living in the moment, if you're not experiencing what's happening around you, if you're not sitting in a bus and are sitting wherever, and you're actually like observing, wow, I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing what the world looks like. I'm observing this new person that I could talk to, etc. Like, you're not living, you're not experiencing, which I think the whole point of the spiritual experience is to live in the world that you're living, and to actually recognize what's happening around you without fear,
Yes.
without this idea that I need to see what's going on with my crypto account or my stock account, or I need to worry about whether or not uh, like I have enough money to pay for this overpriced like DoorDash delivery or whatever the hell
Oh,
it might be. It's just it's shocking to see, like, once you get away some of these everyday fears, the kind of world you can live in and experience, and the way other people perceive it as well. And it bleeds into a lot of things, and we'll probably be talking about different subjects, but it's like, even being an American and like dating, right? Like, to realize that someone wants more of your attention, to realize, like, I don't have to pretend I'm too busy right now. This person just texted me. Let me text them tomorrow so I look like I have something else to do. Let me wait 30 minutes so I can look like I'm busy, or I'm obligated in some ways. Like, no, let me give this person my attention because they want it. There's not these games. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
it's it's strange how many different little things it impacts. So where suddenly, like, I'm not wasting my time pretending to be so busy with crap that I can actually focus on the things that matter to me. Of course, there's time for work. Of course, there's time to make money. There's time to do all these things, but it's actually allocated in such a way that I'm not constantly feeling like afraid that I'm giving someone too much attention, or I'm not paying too much enough attention to my work, etc. That, like, I'm not living my life presently in the way that I want to, which kind of taps into this concept of fear, right? So my question for you, Shauna, right, is I think that people who are afraid of living abroad, and this comes from my perspective as an American. I was afraid of flying even before I left. I was
Wow.
agoraphobic at the worst point before I took off. And like, I literally got in the plane. By the time I got on that plane, I was like, my God, I experienced so much hell. If this plane crashes, it would be better than the pain of what I experienced sitting still. I'm not even kidding.
Wow. Well,
And
that's the thing
so,
about fear.
yeah, and so,
Oh,
like, what I want to ask, I guess, is, I'm speaking strictly as an American, but I feel like people have a lot of fear about
yeah.
going outside of a place where they all speak English, they all speak American, right? We know what things are supposed to cost, even if they cost too much. We would know social what social graces are, even if they're not so good at times. What can you tell me, like, what is the number one misconception that you have for Americans about moving abroad, or any other group of people that you've helped, and helping them
Yeah.
overcome that?
Well, I'll tell you. Misconception number one, that it's expensive to move abroad. It's not expensive to move abroad. I literally know people who have moved abroad with 3K. Yes, $3,000. You got to have something because you got to buy a flight. You could literally buy a flight and be a refugee in Europe. Yes. You could enter because you have an American passport. They're not going to say anything at immigration because you're American. They will let you enter. They might ask for a return flight, but you could literally go be a refugee, and they hardly have any homeless people out there because they actually take care of their people. And then you could just start doing side hustles for 2 years, and then you can file this piece of paper called arraigo in Spain, for example, and all the other countries have their own in their languages. But it's basically like you're filing as somebody who was illegal to be legal. You just saw the news. Spain just approved 500,000 immigrants who were there illegally. Now they're residents. Like, there's so many countries that if literally you had $0 and you were feeling so unsafe right now, because there's a lot of people feeling unsafe in the US, especially people of Asian, people of color, um, anybody that's really an immigrant is not feeling okay right now. So if you had to leave and you were in that really bad situation, you can. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to clear up. Of course, I don't recommend to do that if it's a life or death situation and you really feel your family is unsafe. Like, you can be a refugee. Just know that. Second thing, with the expensive part about moving abroad, all you need is really 10K. 10K in savings to move abroad. that can get you a student visa anywhere. A student visa has no age cap. So you can do Germany, Spain, Portugal, Italy, France. Those are the countries I recommend. I focus on Europe a lot. Of course, you can do Latin America as well. But let's just talk about Europe because I like the safety of Europe. Germany has programs that are $100 per year. My friend is doing her doctorate. She is becoming a doctor. She's from the US. She's spending $100 per year. We have a Business Insider article about it if anybody wants to read it, because there's so many myths. Okay, in Spain, they do have programs. Let's say you want to go get your bachelor's or your master's or your doctorate. Because the thing is remember, it gets you a visa. 800 euros for the year, and it's taught in English, the program. University of Sevilla. Look it up, guys. University of Sevilla has programs, all sorts of degrees. $8,000 for the whole year. So what the consulates will look at, and you can do all of this through the consulate nearest you, any of these visas. They're going to look for they want to see something in your checking or savings for the duration of that year. They literally want to see $10,000 so that you can support yourself for the whole year. That's it. Of course, you need to pay the tuition of the school and show the acceptance letters and yada, yada. But that's how easy it is. I have retirees who do this. I have people that want to start businesses. People come in on a student visa and then they pivot. So after you're in a country on a student visa, I like to use this word pivot because you can pivot to other residence permits afterwards. So you can pivot to a self-employed permit. You can pivot to get hired at a company in that country. Essentially, all of the countries you can do this in. Italy is quite tough because they don't have a very good economy for international work. I wouldn't recommend Italy for that. But Spain and Portugal, they're very progressive. Lots of international stuff happening, tech. The next thing, if you have more than 10K, if you have a bigger savings, go with the Spain non-lucrative visa. Spain's non-lucrative visa only requires 35K in a savings or 2,400 euros of passive income per month, which is about like 2,800 US. So if you're making passive income that's non-working income from stocks, bonds, rental income back home, Social Security, pensions, you can qualify for like a Spain passive income visa or even a Portugal passive income visa or even Italy's passive income visa. Greece has one as well. There's so many countries. Let's say you go up a little higher. You have remote work income of at least 2,000 euros per month, which is like 2,300 US. You can get the digital nomad visa in Italy. Portugal's is 3,680 euros you have to show per month of remote work income, sorry. And then Spain's is 2,700 euro. Of course, there's steps. You have to have contracts with clients. You need to show invoices. They have to be business clients. But it's relatively simple if you can set those up. So those are those. And I think that's the biggest misconception is like the money aspect. The other thing would be you have to have a why. And there's so many people, a lot of people are all talk. And I know this because I host master classes that have 1,500 people on them. I do a free master class every month. So if you guys want to come on, I'll give the link to Fry. But you should see, there's so many Americans or people in general that talk about this, but the ones that actually do it, it's very few because it's hard. I mean, you're changing your life, but your why has to be big. It's got to be like, get excited about your vision. Like, don't just talk about the fear. If you're going to watch the news and like continue in this dark hole spiral, that's not going to motivate you each day to like, all right, let me clean out this room of my house. Let me look up this visa. Let's make a plan. Like, if you're going to be in the negative and be super fearful, it's probably not going to help you with your move abroad. So I always tell people, like, get out of the fear. If you're on the fence, get off the fence. Get clear with your why. What is your vision? Close your eyes. Do some meditation. Even if you don't like to meditate, like, there is something about it, okay? Imagine, what does your freaking dream life look like? What are you seeing? How are you feeling? Like, are you smiling when you're seeing yourself with these French doors opening up to a balcony, and like green parrots flying through the street, and you not having to wake up with an alarm, and going on a nice hike in the morning, and then chilling in the little local community, and just knowing everybody in the town. Like, that's what I see, and that gets me excited. I'm like, oh hell yeah, that's fucking
Just having you describe that is like weird to me because it sounds so nice. And like I definitely am allowed to shape my time. I still try and put way too much into it, and a lot of that, unlike most of my life, involves self care now,
yeah.
which is something that I've spent the vast majority of my life putting off and not respecting. And now that I do that, I very much feel like I don't have enough time to dedicate to, grinding. And then that makes me pull a 60-hour workday to like make up for my transgressions against like economos. It's like it's hard. And but really, like, one of the biggest things that's like a hurdle to me. I've become a very social person. And so
Yeah.
when I was traveling, I had absolutely no problem just getting right into things like immediately. Um, and especially like everywhere I went, I made sure to go dance with people everywhere I went.
Yes.
Shockingly,
That's
because
how we met, was
yeah,
dancing.
yes. So, and like it to me, it's amazing because I don't need to know how to speak their language to know how to speak their language. On the dance floor, we both talk like just fine.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so that's a big thing, and I think that unlike a lot of people, I do have that ability to connect in a really, really like spiritual way with a lot of people.
Yeah.
However, we have a massive, amazing friend group here. I'm very well established here. I have my own home. I've been here, 13 years now, I think.
Wow.
And, my family's right here. My wife's family is here. Up
Yeah.
until very recently, we were all very close. That has degraded on her side, unfortunately. But, her family's all still here,
Yeah.
and my family is all still here. So, really, the hardest thing for me, because I could give a crap really about like hopping over and starting over there, because I don't think it would be hard to, make new friends. But I just hate the idea of leaving such an incredible group of people that we have here. That is my biggest hurdle, is
Yes.
leaving the beautiful like group that we have developed, because
I
god damn,
know.
it's incredible. Like, it is a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful, amazing group of people
Yeah.
that I've slowly curated over a lot of a lot of churning out garbage.
Yes,
So,
I know. That's a huge misconception, Robin, and I'm happy you brought it up. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's like, what kind of life do you want to live? And the biggest thing misconception is that actually that you're going to be more disconnected from family, but actually I notice family and friends that you actually get closer to them. I don't know if you guys see each other every day. So that might be, there's never a perfect way, but
mhm.
what I notice when you move abroad is actually you call your family more. You actually talk to them via FaceTime more. You
Amen.
actually,
Yes.
yeah, you actually, the times that you talk to them, because you're on a different perspective and you're operating on a different level now. You're out of the crazy rat race. So
Mhm.
you're able to see things clearer and you really appreciate those relationships more. Your family and friends, you actually see them more. I don't know about yours if they live next door to you, but most family and
30,
friends,
30 minutes away.
okay, so they
Yeah.
still live driving. You still can see your family and friends more than you would in the US, because in Europe we have like 6 weeks vacation in summer that people normally do. And then
Mhm.
Christmas, nobody really ever works. So those two, and then they can visit you. So you go back home like twice a year, and then they'll come visit you twice a year. So you're like constantly seeing your family and your friends. And actually the time that you're spending together is more consistent, because you're like, when you go back home, you'll probably go stay at your mom's house, in the guest bedroom, and you're going to be with her for a month
Mhm.
versus,
Oh
okay, I'll
God,
see you,
don't
mom.
ever say that. That'd be my nightmare.
God, no, please no. But you're so right, Shauna, because like I can say for sure the same thing. Like my parents and I mean, I was living in Vegas when I sold my home, And then, I moved to Reno before, briefly before I took this final trip to Tbilisi, Georgia. And I gotta say, like, even when we were living in the same city, the connections that I had to my parents, the connections I even had to some of my friends, Robin excluded, have actually improved substantially since I left. And it's not just because I don't have to deal with these people because I'm a block away from them all the time. But what I actually mean is what you just said about not participating in the rat race, what we've talked about with this spiritual journey that you're on, when you actually start to feel fulfilled and you check in with people that are literally not right next door with you every day, but you're actually having a new adventure and you can share new experiences. My God, does it not bond you with those people better? I mean, I talk with my parents now on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
It's such a silly thing, right? Because you're so used to having a standard phone plan with AT&T. I finally got rid of everything. I was like, this isn't working. It's too expensive. And now I'm using the whole eSIM thing, and it's so much better. Like we just WhatsApp each other. I don't get BS calls all day from people trying to sell me things. I don't get mail that I don't want. Like I'm walking across the street to like check and get a bunch of spam mail that I don't want to watch or to read or look at. I'm calling people when I want to talk to them. Oh my God, what a concept. Like I'm
Right.
not answering the phone all day for people I don't want to deal with. And the people who call me through WhatsApp, even if they're not, friends or family, they're business contacts, there's no spam, there's no BS. Like I'm cutting out all this nonsense that was just a huge waste of my time. And you don't realize that until you get away. And then you start having conversations with your parents. And I'm talking to them about like, I realize what a relationship's supposed to be. I realize what work life balance is supposed to be. I realize what it's like to be able to afford my home and to be able to go out and like eat once in a while and meet people. And these
Yeah.
are supposed to be normal human experiences, but you don't experience them until you get away. And you
Mm.
talked about, and I appreciate the detail you provided, Shauna, on different places you can live and ways to get like residence permits and stuff. And like what I loved about Georgia specifically is that there's not a visa required. You just show up and you can stay basically a year. You
Yep.
leave for a day, come back, your year resets. It's pretty cool.
That
You
is
know,
cool about Georgia.
yeah, and it's also like the LLC incorporation. There's lots of benefits, low tax, etc. But it's remarkably easy. But what I love too is that you bring a breadth of knowledge to helping people around the globe because people come with different experiences, different needs based on the different nationalities they represent. I have a friend who was asking me. He shares my love of Russian women. He's
Ah,
Canadian. He wants to go to Russia, and he was going to get his visa, and he found, and it was so weird to me because I'm aware of how we have this in America, we have this proxy war going with Russia through Ukraine, right? And so I would think it'd be harder for an American citizen to go to Russia. Well, I was going to go to Russia. I'm actually delaying my trip until later, but basically, I had gotten my visa and it was a pretty straightforward process. I had to pay a little bit of money to do it, but I got it done, right?
yeah.
And he's Canadian. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, Canada doesn't have a proxy war with Russia, right? So I would think it'd be easier for him to go. But apparently, because of a treaty that exists between America and Russia that still matters, you know, you I don't need a residence permit to go to Russia, but him
No.
as a Canadian needs a residency permit to go to Russia. So what I love is you bring this breadth of knowledge to where you're able to help people who deal with different situations based on their nationality, that they have different needs.
Yep.
And I think that's really super cool. So my two questions that I have for you is, first of all, was there one country that really shifted your worldview in regards to this world travel situation and what happened there? And just anything else you want to provide with regards to how different countries kind of impact your approach with the clients you have.
Yeah, so I normally focus on countries that are super safe. I am a woman, so I was debating when I first did this when I was 22. I'm now 32. I was like, should I move to Argentina or Spain? When I started looking at the, crime stats, the EU is way safer. I can walk home at night by myself at 4 in the morning. Nothing happens to me. Across Europe, I've lived in France, Spain, India. India is a lot more unsafe. But Thailand is pretty safe. I don't really focus on Asia. I focus on the EU a lot. There are tax benefits for a lot of people that are looking at moving to the EU. Spain has Beckham's Law if you have passive income or structure yourself as a W-2. And Portugal has NHR 2.0 if you do invest in the golden visa, but that requires a substantial investment of like 500K. And then they allocate a percentage of that into tech. And then you get this 0% foreign tax thing. But I guess the countries, it's really based on safety and really depends on what you want. But the other thing is what I'll want to leave everybody with is you can't just say, oh, I want to move to Switzerland just because you like went there on vacation and you love it. You have to look at your finances and the visas, because Switzerland would not be a good choice because you either have to be a highly skilled migrant that has 10, 15 years of experience, right? Or you need to do a student visa. There's really no other option, or start a business there. But, it's just, I work with countries that have very easy visa pathways. So Spain, Portugal, Italy, France, the Netherlands, and Malta have very good, easy visa pathways for foreigners. I like the Netherlands because it's the DAFT visa. You create a company in the Netherlands and it's 4,500 euros. That's it. You just have to fund a Dutch bank account with that amount. And you can live a really good life there. And it's beautiful and progressive and has great music and great food and it's diverse and your kids are going to be safe. So yeah, I mean, was there one country that really stood out for me? I mean, it was my experience in Spain. Just seeing how other people live and how you can live so slow and with ease and not be stressed all the time. The Europeans live 8 years longer than Americans on average. That's a long time.
That's nuts.
Think about your life, think about your livelihood. And if you guys ever have any questions, come to one of my free master classes if you'd like. If you're like, I'm set, I don't want to spend 15 grand on a relocation agency, because you'll see on Instagram, there are relocation coaches. I'm a move abroad coach. So there are some other like coaches or relocation agencies that are charging like 10 to 15 grand per person to move you. You don't have to do that. You can do everything on your own. So what I do is I have this program. It's called the Move Overseas Now Academy. And you can join. It's self-paced course. You get lifetime access and yearly updates on all the 10 countries I support. Step-by-step video tutorials on how to apply for these visas. It's kind of insane. And then I throw in 6 months of complimentary coaching into the deal. And I mean, it's ridiculous how cheap it is. It's like $6 a day for like, if you do that by like 6 months, it's pretty doable. And then I basically review everything. So if you guys have any questions about any of the visas, instead of paying like 5-10 grand to have like a company do it, I will show you exactly how to get approved and review all your stuff. So if you guys want to get in, just feel free to reach out to me. And thank you so much for having me here, Fry.
Of course. Thank you so much, Shawna. Before you go, is there anything else you want to share? And thank you so much for this. It's been such good information. So thank you.
I mean, seriously, if anybody wants to connect, I mean, just reach out. And I'm always willing to answer questions in the DMs, in my email. My business model is a very heart-focused, heart-centered business. So, I'm helping change people's lives. And I'm helping you get to this dream. And so it's so much fun for me because I was there. I know exactly what you're going through, and it can seem really tough, but there's a community. You don't have to do it by yourself. and there is help. So come on this journey, experience this before you die. That's all I'm going to say. And thank you for having me.
Amen to that.
Thank
That's
you.
moveoverseasnow.com.
Yes. And let's
Thank you
meet
so
up,
much.
Fry. I want to see you in Georgia.
Please, anytime. No, I'm always welcoming guests, so come anytime. I'll show you around. There's so much to see.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was so good to see you, Robin.
Yes, you as well. And hopefully I'll see you on the dance floor again soon.
Yes. Text me.
I will.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one. Thanks again.
Like, I actually like really give a shit about what we're talking about today. I think that it matters because, you know, I've said this again and again to people, and sometimes people look at me like I'm fucking crazy for saying it, but I think it's true. We sit here and I'm in Tbilisi and you're in Sparks, right? And we're having a conversation and it's a podcast and there's all these technical realities that exist and we're talking about borderless living and we care about decentralized finance. All right. And like that's kind of the reality that we present ourselves with. But I believe there's something greater going on under the surface. There's a purpose that we're here. You don't need to be here, Robin. You don't need to fucking be here. You could be doing 100 other things. You just did a 60-hour work week. You're not getting paid to be here. So why are you here? I don't think you're just here because of me. I think that you're here because this matters to some extent to you. I feel like this is a part of our soul journey to try to make people free in some sense or the other, which is something we've been exploring since our time in the rave scene, trying to get people to take a minute and escape like this daily grind and say like, why don't we just fucking dance and
Yeah.
listen to some fucking music or just explore what it means to be, you know?
Yeah.
I
Build
think
our
that
connection
matters.
with people and like find what the hell we are too. That was a big thing too, is like, especially from a young age, we are so heavily conditioned to be what society wants us to be that we never have a chance to actually like enjoy what it is that we are or what we're becoming or what we could be. Um, our trajectory and our lives are built out for us by everyone else. And then we have to go and fumble along and find out that that's not right for us while everyone else tells us that we're fucking up. And like, you know, we have to do it this way, we have to do it that way. I mean, especially like, you know, going to college in the US and going all the way through thinking that, you know, doing the corporate lifestyle is the thing for me just so I can, you know, make money and climb the corporate ladder and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm just like, I don't work well with these constraints of other people telling me to do stupid and or horrendous shit. I can't just sit around and like let it happen. And I'm not good in an environment like that because I will voice my opinion and I will spitball ideas and I have my own concepts and it does not fit well in that environment. But pretty much nothing in college prepares you to actually, or life prepares you to go into business for yourself, especially not back then. I think that like the whole side hustle thing is a pretty new concept. So in that regard, there's a lot more companies that allow you to kind of be your own worker in a way, you know, and be an independent contractor or to, you know, learn for yourself online and do all these things that just like they weren't a reality when we were younger. So forging your own path was not something that you did. It was not. It was not publicized. It was not recognized as a good thing, despite the fact that like anyone who's anyone has forged their own path. You know, and I mean like you don't do this kind of stuff, and you don't make moves by climbing the corporate ladder and just having other people telling you what to do constantly. You have to make moves that shake things up, you know, for better or worse. But you're not going to be remembered for being, you know, the assistant manager of CVS, you know.
Although you could get some really good like coupon discounts if you know how to
Yeah,
work the system a
you
little bit. I
can.
know you did that extreme couponing stuff. But no, what I love though is about what you said is it's not just like what I talked about before. Like I come from a very conservative family who did everything correctly in terms of their taxes, in terms of their work, in terms of putting savings away, trying to live the American dream. And the sad thing is that every one of them is struggling right now for
Yep.
various reasons. And it's not because they're bad people. It's actually they literally did everything right, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
the boomers are really starting to feel the pinch now that they bitched at us for 30 years about, basically, and told us what stupid pieces of shit we are. And now suddenly they can't afford anything. And it's
yeah,
like, oh, look what happened to you too. The only
yeah,
difference is
and
that they got to
it's
enjoy themselves for a while.
yeah, I mean they're looking for work now, and they're also entering a world where people like us are getting replaced with AI, you know?
Yeah.
And you talk about being like a blazer, right? Like somebody who carves their own path, who's creative, who doesn't just trust that they're going to go to school and learn the system. Not that it doesn't matter to be educated, but it's not the full answer that you're just going to go to school and someone's going to teach you how to survive in this world of tomorrow. You have
Mhm.
to think for yourself, especially in a world where we have AIs thinking for themselves faster than we could ever fathom.
Well, one of
And
the funniest things was like finding out how helpless I was after, my big important education and being a big shot, basically, and finding out that I couldn't do a damn thing for myself when it came time for like all the tasks that need to be done for real. Big deal. I can make money so I can spend it on someone else who knows how to do the stuff that I don't. Because that's not a priority, especially in an economy that loves to continuously process people through the meat grinder. It's important that everyone's constantly earning and spending all the time. So it's good to have people who earn a bunch but are completely helpless in the real world who have to pay other people to do stuff because it keeps everyone working and working and working instead of just learning and growing and being self-sufficient and progressing as a person.
yeah, I don't disagree with you at all there. And to be honest, like, and this is a little weird for me because like it's a thing that flies in the face of my anarcho-capitalist beliefs, right? Like I believe in a world where we can engage in free trade, and I definitely don't believe that government has all the answers. But there's definitely an inherent problem with money, and there's definitely an inherent problem with the idea that we have to constantly consume to be meaningful. There's
Mhm.
definitely an inherent problem with the idea that there's so much abundance. There's so much. Um, and yet we still find ourselves at various points in our lives fighting over the scraps, you know? And I'd love to say that free trade and free markets and the removing of government seems to fix that. And I guess it's better than giving a state a monopoly on violence. But on another note, people who have power don't make the right decisions and they don't look out for their fellow man. And when you see a culture of that, it makes you think like, what am I doing here? Why am I in a society that doesn't value me? Why do I feel like no matter how much I do, I can't possibly get ahead? And it's getting harder and harder every year for me to provide for my family, to get a home, to get a car, to live this American dream. It's dead. And these
Yeah,
people who keep
it's
claiming they're
long,
gonna
long dead. It's
yeah,
long
they
dead and being like just the corpse is being like stabbed in the streets. It's sitting there rotting. It's been there for a really, really long time, and it's rotten and falling apart, and people are just poking it with sticks. It's so long dead. I mean, like, I am in a vastly better position than most people I know.
We
I
both
have,
are, for sure.
yeah, I mean, as someone living in the US right now, I'm in a vastly better position than most people. And I make considerably more than most people. And I own a home that most people could never get. And my bills are minimal. And I still am just like, how the hell do people do this? Like, and I just like, I think about people who are way worse than me, like in a different scenario, people who weren't able to buy a home when I was, people who are not able to have like the same credit that I am, people who do not have the same earning potential and the ability to work from home and to, there's so many things that I am grateful for, yet also forget how much better I have it than a lot of people do in my country. And yet at the same time, I'm still constantly just like, I don't know how anyone like who is even close to below me can function at this point, because I find myself uh, being a very thrifty person, still just like not going in the trajectory that I want to because of how expensive things are here and because of how bad things are continuously getting. And I mean, not to mention, of course, the healthcare system where you pretty much spend a massive amount of your time and money, especially as you age, just falling apart financially and physically. All the work that you will do just so you can be bankrupt by the time you're 70 years old, if you make it to that long. Which, how many, I don't know too many people who make it to 70. I feel like that's such a huge lie.
No, I amen to that. I mean, my parents are struggling with that now. My mom has been working in respiratory therapy her whole life, and she's now in her 70s, and she's still working.
Yeah,
They're
it's
paying
it's
a
just it's not okay. And our culture in the US has been brought up to tell us that it is okay and that it's honorable and it's what should be done. And especially, I feel like with the previous generation too, they had their lives and their personalities so intertwined with their work that like so many people would retire and not know what to do with themselves and then just die because they had no reason to live anymore. They weren't living for like the love of life. They weren't living for their partner. They weren't living for their kids. It was like, how can I produce like, cylinders for this engine? And now I can't do it anymore. So I guess I'm just going to die.
Of
you
course.
know?
No, I mean, can you imagine, like, you work your whole life in taking care of the healthcare needs of other people for a hospital, and still you're paying hundreds of dollars a month to have your health care plan after you're supposed to have retired. You're still working part time for another hospital. You're still dealing with the health savings plan bullshit that you know what that's all about. You're still dealing with co-pays. You're still dealing with all this shit. And at the end of the day, you're just like, my God, I have spent my whole life dedicating myself to helping other people. So much time I've given away to not, and that wouldn't even be so bad to help other people, but you factor in the taxation factor, right? The first thing I ever remember hearing my parents argue about, the first pain that I ever experienced in my household was hearing my parents argue about the IRS, argue about how much they've been taxed and not being able to make ends meet because like so much of their income was just being taken from them. And they're supposed to be a middle class family. They're sending me to a private school because they want me to have a better education, but I'm like the poorest person going there. you know? And it was just shocking to me that they made all these sacrifices because they wanted me to be successful. They wanted me to be happy. They wanted me to have everything that they didn't get to have. And now I'm watching them in their golden years continue to work, continue to struggle, continue to hope that some president, some politician is going to fix everything, and it never happens.
Mhm.
It keeps getting harder. Healthcare isn't getting any better. Things keep getting more expensive. And I tried to convince them to come with me on this journey because I'm like, what's better is there going to be here, right? And they said, well, Paul, right? Fry, but Paul, um, we don't really have the chance that you have. We can't really mess up at this point in our lives. Go on this journey, and we wish you the best. If it goes wrong, at least you can rebuild again because you're still young. But we don't have that same chance. But I'm like, what other opportunity do you have? How's it going to get any
All
better?
the more reason to do it.
Yeah,
And
like why
it's
not
not
do
like
it?
they definitely don't have like the amount of ties, that like I wrestle with, you know. I mean, they have their home. Um, when it comes to friends and family, minimal, you know. I don't really think that they do too much association in their with their neighbors at this point, And I mean, you do less and less of that as you get older too, a lot of the time. But yeah, I mean, all the more reason to take the plunge and try, especially considering like how much you're spending and all that kind of stuff. Now, the hard part is I feel like if you were retired, that might be easier. But with you needing that income, it is a good tether to keep you here in the grind, because you have in your mind like, how can I possibly afford to take such a maneuver in my life and change things up when I can barely function do what I'm doing right now. I would move over, I would have nothing to make, I would have no income. How would I sustain myself? And for someone who's older, that that's a legitimate concern. If you don't have a way to make income, and you're not making like the funds that you would need to adequately live, that's a potential issue. And it's a shitty one. It's a shitty thing for people to be so old and in the years where they've been promised, oh, you only have to work for 60 years and then things will finally be good in your life. Trust us.
Right? No,
Like
that's the
just give us
ridiculous
another
part of it.
3, just give us another 4 years, just another 5 years, and suddenly retirement's at 70 years old if you qualify.
That's what they're constantly doing. It's like they're whittling away more time out of people to make them believe in this system that's never going to fulfill them. And it's hard because I could tell my parents, sell your home, take the profits. You could literally buy an apartment outright in Tbilisi, right?
Mhm.
And I'll guide you through it. You've got your son who's really good at AI, who knows how to translate things, who knows the places to go, who can show you around. Like I'm scared for them. I'm scared for like a lot of Americans about what's coming. I'm worried about it because it's scary and it's not, I at one point, and it's hard to talk about because I didn't vote for either of the two choices that we had for president. I didn't like either of them, and I still stand firm that like Chase Oliver, at least I can sleep at night. But like I did feel at one point like maybe it was better that Trump won for crypto, for the economy, but everything's just so fucked. It's so fucked up. And like you're watching every market plunge now. You're watching the debt crisis reach such a level that your dollar has no spending value anymore. And at least I thought that there would be a hedge in gold or silver or Ethereum or Bitcoin. And I do still believe that those narratives are strong. But I'm also looking at a society that's losing faith in everything. And I look at what happened to my marriage, and we lost faith in everything. And I'm like, the problem here isn't just economical, it's fucking spiritual, man.
Yeah.
Like, we're losing ourselves as people. Like, I don't agree with a lot of people about economics on the left or right, but I do love them as human beings. And I'm sad that we can't come together and fix this, because I think it's reaching a dangerous head to where, like, the best solution we can have, it's hard for me to switch back to this because it's like, let me just find an angle to make it about me, right? Like, why don't you just offshore, talk to Fry? He'll help you set up your fucking Easter egg in another fucking country. But like, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Like, I feel like the American dream's fucking dead, you know? Like, what purpose is there anymore in sticking around for your dollar to get worth less and less, to watch these politicians take your rights away, take away your freedom of speech, to tell you who you can and can't criticize, whether or not they're a local or foreign entity, you know? The fact that there was a veteran who like burned a flag, like that. There used to be a precedent, Texas versus Johnson, that said that that was a protected form of speech, that if you burn a flag, you're making a statement of speech, that even if you're a veteran, even if you're an active military person, you're supposed to protect someone's freedom of speech, their very ability to not literally spit in your face, but metaphorically, if you think it is so, to burn a flag in front of you, even though you've made this sacrifice, you've been willing to defend our freedoms, go to another country, die in Vietnam or whatever place, because you believe so much in people's ability to express themselves, even if they use it to say that they hate you. That's how much you love this country. And that's being taken away from people, and people are just letting it happen, And how can people sit around and let it happen and think if we just voted harder, it'd be better, Like it.
I think a lot of people, especially, I'm going to shit talk conservatives because I just cannot stand the hypocrisy.
I hate everyone. So go on.
I don't mind differing opinions, but please don't be full of shit when you say something. Like, if you say something, mean it and stick to it, And I find the hypocrisy of freedom lovers is like, if you have this boner for freedom, you probably despise freedom. I cannot just fathom the times when I'm blown away at how frequently conservatives hate freedom and would love to murder everyone that disagrees with them. So it's very hard for me to, and this is one of the problems too, is the more that opinions are able to get out there, the more that we have seen. And, Trump's election, if anything, a lot of people say that, he caused a lot of hatred. I think he just allowed the reality to flow to the surface, which has the positives of at least not being in the dark, thinking that you live with decent people. But I think the reality here right now as well is things are massively fractured because we have a large group of people who only wants their way. They love to talk about how much they love freedom, but it's not freedom. It's only their view of it. And that usually involves stepping on everyone's rights that you don't agree with. If you do not understand somebody in the slightest way, they should probably die or leave. And that's just not freedom. And so as we continue to clash with that kind of stuff and realize how awful the vast majority of people that we have here are, it's getting harder and harder to want to stay here as well, or to feel like you belong in a place that's just spewing hatred constantly and that's doing terrible things. Me personally, I would rather live next to illegal immigrants who are really nice than nasty, hateful, cruel people who were born here. And they don't understand that because they are nasty, hateful, small minded, cruel people. And they'll never try to understand that. So that's the hardest part too, is you'll never have a chance to really sit down and have a decent conversation with these people because the vast majority of the stuff happens online. And that's not a good place for like deep, important, connecting conversations. So basically, like, I feel, one of the things that's motivating me to want to go is how long until things erupt into absolute horror here. I see it getting worse all the time. I see myself more angry various times. I find myself hopeless more frequently. And meanwhile, while living a very good life. Because it's a spiritual aspect of knowing that you're just like, you're floating in a pool of misery and people are digging it. People are loving this pool of misery. They will
They're addicted
fight.
to it.
Yeah, they are. They will fight tooth and nail to defend it and to make it more miserable for anyone that they do not like or agree with.
Yeah, and what frustrates me, Robin, is I agree with everything you said, and people who are aware of the conservative aspects of what it means as me to be an anarcho-capitalist libertarian might be confused about that, but I'd like to express that for a minute. Libertarians at their core are supposed to be for open borders, okay? Now, when we look at the culture and society that we have, when you look at Biden's concept of what open borders meant, people flowing across the border and getting free health care benefits that we wouldn't give to our own benefits, our own veterans, our own citizens, etc. There is an element of unfairness to that. But on the same regard, is there really a problem with a person who just wants to live a better life crossing an invisible boundary? You and I all both know that we don't have an issue with that. We've talked about this in far, like, very deep conversations about this. But it's also like the way the media presents these issues and the way people are put in positions to defend them. It's an unwinnable situation.
I think the problem is that I don't like either side of the equation in so many situations that we're supposed to represent our values in these problems. And what I mean is, on one hand, I don't like seeing somebody riding around with a foreign flag, throwing bricks at cops, setting things on fire, shit like this that we saw during the riots. Okay.
Would you be okay with them riding around with an American flag doing it?
No, neither. Like, people shouldn't
Well,
be
why?
constantly.
So what made you say foreign flag then?
It's the idea that if someone inherently did that in Mexico, if you were in Mexico, okay, and you're an illegal immigrant, which again, we know that this is a bullshit term, but let's just say you're an illegal immigrant by the government of Mexico and you're riding around with an American flag, throwing bricks at cops, setting shit on fire. I'm pretty sure you get fucking shot and they wouldn't deal with that shit, okay?
Probably.
My point is, okay, I don't represent that side of it. I also don't represent fucking ICE throwing flashbangs in like children's fucking faces because they think that illegal immigrants are such a problem that they need to correct this problem by, we're going to hire these people, we're going to pay them $50,000 signing bonuses, we're going to spend ridiculous amounts of money to remove some guy. And again, I'm being ridiculous here, but some guy is running a fucking taco truck or some shit. You know what I mean? Who fucking knows? Somebody who's washing dishes, someone who's just trying to fucking get by, doing the hardest fucking work possible. Not criminals. We're not picking and choosing which people are toxic immigrants, which people are taking advantage of the system. We're just going to go after all of them because they're all fucking bad, right? And we're going to throw flashbangs in their faces, and we're going to arrest them, and we're going to do all this shit, and we're going to spend retarded amounts of money to just get them out, right? What is the net benefit to that economically? All right, first of all, what's the net benefit to that spiritually? Are we really doing anything to improve our country by spending these ridiculous amounts of money? We've lost money, I guess, by people flowing across the border and maybe taking advantage of incentives. We could cut off incentives and just enable people who are here trying to get by to do what they're trying to do and start there. But instead, we hire these fucking bootlickers to go around and not just attack illegal immigrants. We give them all this freedom to attack illegal immigrants, and now they're killing American citizens. At what point do we actually give a shit about this problem before these people become the Gestapo and coming after us as well? I brought this issue up to my parents when they were first talking about taking away due process from illegal immigrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of conservatives support this issue. The idea of taking away due process from illegal immigrants. And I'm like,
they hate the idea of the freedom promised by our country to anyone who they deem not worthy of it. So they don't value freedom at all. They do not value the rule of law at all. What they value is what they want and what they like and what they don't like. And
it's no different than the Patriot Act. Someone can literally label you a terrorist. Someone can label you an illegal immigrant. The government can. You suddenly lose your rights. You don't get an attorney. You don't get to fight your case. It starts with maybe they deport you. It might even be they can fucking kill you.
Mm-hmm.
We support this now because we've been so turned against people that are just fellow human beings that we've lost the whole fucking script as to what the problem is, you know? Yeah. I would never have a problem with people crossing an invisible boundary if we didn't give them entitlements. If we literally said, like, we're not going to tax our people and take it to redistribute to other people who haven't earned it. If we just got rid of that whole concept, why would I give a shit who comes across an invisible boundary? If we literally held people accountable in the same way who commit a crime, regardless of being illegal, etc., it wouldn't matter, you know? But we have everything so fucked up right now in our system that we've somehow been able to convince people that we need to mass hire ICE to do all this ridiculous shit. And we're slowly losing control of our country, not just economically, but we literally have this fucking brutal force that is actually like violating human rights. And that's kind of like the point that I was getting to of this whole situation. Does it matter which flag, etc.? No, of course not. My point is just there are things that wouldn't fly in another country. So of course, when I see these issues presented, do I want to take the side of the protesters? No, but I definitely don't want to take the side of ICE. I don't want to take the side of protesters if they're destroying property and trying to harm people, okay? But I definitely don't take the side of people that are just mass assaulting people and being able to get away with it just because they come from another country, you know? And what I see so much in America right now is that there doesn't seem to be a winning side. It seems like everything is just a race to the bottom in terms of what we can support. It's literally like, you know, when I talk about Republicans, right? Let's just say that, you know, you talk about, you don't particularly like conservatives. Well, if the one thing I would challenge to that is you don't like the hypocrisy of the conservatives.
Yes.
Because if you look at the recent government shutdown, the only fucking Republican who voted with the Democrats to keep the government shut down was Thomas fucking Massey. And if you look at the reasons why he shut it down, you'd say, my God, he's an actual conservative. He doesn't want to continue giving billions to Israel. You know, He doesn't want to continue wasteful government spending. He's actually a real Republican. Trump and his whole party is turning against him as if he's a fucking rhino, a Republican in name only, because he refused to vote for the spending bill that continues this spiral of debt that is causing inflation and causing the issues that continue our American lives to be so fucking hard. You know,
Well, Trump has no loyalty to anyone. Anytime anyone, they could have been like his biggest dick sucker for 7 straight years. And like all they have to do is like not tell him that his farts smell good, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here, you traitorous piece of shit," which is also just something horrific to me. I'm like, you can't even like keep your like fart sniffers around without them. Like if the second that they do anything that you don't like, you are miles ahead of throwing them under the bus. Because if you do anything, I mean, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I absolutely despise.
I do like some of her recent actions with the Epstein list, though. She's impressive.
To me, I just don't trust a single thing about her at this point, because at this point, I see that she might be dipping out specifically because she sees that things are falling apart, not because she actually cares. And even if she does care, she didn't care about all of this stuff for so long. It's like you had this heel turn suddenly, and now want to talk all of this like populism and we should all get along type bullshit after you spent your entire career dividing and demonizing. And now she has to, because she's an outsider from Trump, because he no longer will, keep her around. So he's the worst of the worst when it comes to that too, which is another thing that I don't respect. I'm like, can you at least respect your fart sniffing pieces of shit that have worked their ass off to keep sniffing your farts? Like, it's like, I mean, someone like Ted Cruz, for instance. Trump called his wife like he's a stinking, disgusting worm. But like, what a fucking like simpering little bitch he is for Trump to like talk shit about his wife, and then like suddenly he's like doing phone banking for Trump. It's like, you are such a turd. Like, do you care about nothing?
Did you hear what he said recently? He actually was on video and he said we should stop going after pedophiles. I'm not even shitting you. Like, I'll have to.
Is this in relation to the Epstein list? I know the Republicans hate the Epstein list now that names are coming out.
Now that Trump might be on it, right? Well, like, no, the fucking ironic thing is he literally said, like, we need to stop going after pedophiles. Like, he actually said this. Like, we're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I can't believe he said this shit,
But this is the thing too. You think about like if somebody had said that, like as a Republican 15 years ago, unless it was about the Catholic Church. Well, we'll pretend. But we don't need to worry about those pedophiles that have been working very well.
No pedophiles unless they're priests.
2,000 years worth of fucking children. But, don't worry about that one. But the rest of it, they would have at least pretended to care. Now they're just like, what? We don't give a shit. Like, I'm waiting around just to see what level of nonsense they can be okay with next. Because that was my first thing when Trump was starting to like actually like make it through the ranks of like the 30 Republicans that were running back in the day. I was like, surely this must destroy him. Surely he can't possibly like survive saying this or doing that or getting caught having done this. Surely everything about him is horribly transparent, and anyone with half a brain can see it or look back on anything he's done in the past 30 years and realize he's lying. And after a while, I'm just like, nope, that's not going to do anything. Nope. Because he transferred from a figure to, a god, basically.
He's their orange Jesus, man.
He is. I know.
Well, I believe Orange Jesus is going to eventually collapse the dollar. I think that it was and I say that while also admitting that I think it was doomed the minute it was between Kamala and Trump. And I know we might differ a little bit on that particular point of view, but I think what's sad is back and forth throughout the years, the entire time we've been voting as people in elections as people old enough to vote. Like it seems like there's never been an alternative where we weren't choosing the lesser of two evils. We're Bernie Sanders supporters, right? And while I'm a libertarian now and narco-capitalist, and I'm definitely not about socialism or even democratic socialism like I was then, I at least believe that he was a good person.
Yeah, my political philosophy, that aligned with him was, can we give a shit about each other? Like, can we actually, and this again about the hypocrisy of this country, that we are, united we stand, we're the greatest country, all of these things that are supposed to be like this cohesive bond between the citizens, and yet everyone fucking hates each other. I mean, but man, like the conservatives actively want to murder their neighbors, and they're just like itching to fucking whip those guns out and start killing their neighbors as quickly as possible. So that's, it's like, my philosophy is, can we be nice to each other and help each other? I bet we could. I don't
know. I don't know about that, Robin.
That's the thing, is like, then, the more that you dig into it and what has happened recently, you see that a lot of people have no interest in ever trying to get along. There's no interest in that. So it's not even a matter of how can we, it's how can we survive the destruction that's just bubbling below the surface? Because everyone, there's a lot of people that are not in favor of the things that some people do, and there's a lot of them that want to eliminate everything that they do not agree with or do not understand. And sometimes it's very, very simplistic stuff that anyone who's ever like questioned any aspect of their self or, their personality or their life choices, it's like little things like that a lot of people have never bothered to explore, and that will keep them in the dark and keep them hateful for forever.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to leave. I felt like getting out of America, getting away from the political turmoil, getting away from the rat race was very healthy to me, to actually like discover myself and what was meaningful to me and the kind of life that I particularly like wanted to lead. And and I guess we could probably like start to wrap it up and kind of come back a little bit to, I guess, what was the point of this, which was like offshore incorporation. I think that's what we were doing, right? But but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess like the main reasons I came here, beyond the spiritual reasons, of course, I mean, the ease of incorporation with LLCs in Georgia. I'm located in Tbilisi specifically and do this for clients. But it's also things like the low tax rate. It's things like the fact that you can trade crypto tax free, which becomes a little bit more interesting if you're an American citizen, because you're still supposed to report your taxes back home to America.
That was one of the things that I really wanted to talk to Shawna a little more about, was to, ask about her clients and her personal experience with, taxation and what that looks like on a level, when you're not like a full citizen. I don't know if she's a dual citizen right now, or if she's like,
well, I can answer some of that. As long as you're a citizen, even dual or whatever, of America, you owe taxes back to America. So the situation is this, right? And this is like my long-term plan. Obviously, I've told you this privately, but I love Russian women. And recently I've started a relationship with someone I'm actually really interested in, not just because she's Russian, but because like we just have so much in common. But my plan has been for a while, once I kind of discovered this new place, once I discovered this interest, was kind of to be like, if I want to escape American taxation, would I not eventually, could I marry a Russian citizen, right? And you would have to briefly live in Russia for like a 3-year like residency period, establish a legitimate marriage, and pay taxes, of course, to Russia. And then once that's established, you become a dual citizen of Russia, which isn't always like liked by Russia for you to be American and Russian. I don't know if you'd have to express your willingness to renounce your American citizenship. I don't know how that part of it works, but essentially, like once you become dual, you can actually apply at a consulate to renounce your American citizenship. So you'd pay presently, I think it's like a $2,900 exit fee, and once that happens, you essentially just become Russian.
You pay that to the U.S.
I think so. Yeah, it's like your fee to escape. Bye bye. Like here's
you want to like truly escape our hellhole. You owe us. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's pretty great. But yeah, you pay whatever taxes you owe plus this exit fee, and then basically from there now, because you can't be stateless. You can't just say, well, I'm American, fuck you, I don't want to be American anymore, because where the fuck do you go? You can't be a person who's stateless with no passport. So when you become dual, you renounce the other one, now you're Russian, okay? Now you could move to Georgia and you could become a tax citizen of Georgia. And at least with the rules that exist with Russia now, and I'm not going to try to debate who's more authoritarian, Russia or America, and I'm just laying out a path here, example, okay? But as things currently stand, you could locate to Georgia, you could become a tax citizen of Georgia. You won't owe taxes back to Russia. You'll owe taxes to Georgia, which, depending on the type of business you have, for example, like your standard tax rate is essentially like a 15% corporate tax rate, and it's like a 5% dividend tax rate to an individual. You could just call it 20% essentially is your tax rate if you have an LLC here. But you could also have an individual small business license. It doesn't allow you to do the Estonian model of writing off expenses. So what you make, you have to pay taxes on, but it's a 1% fucking rate, okay? So you're looking at, without much application, a 20% rate for an LLC with expenses, an Estonian model, which is really fucking great. Or you're looking at a small business, personal, like business license, which is 1% tax rate, a hell of a lot better than 30 to 40% being American. So this long path of renouncing citizenship, paying your exit fee, marrying a Russian citizen, not just for the sake of escaping taxation, but if you're in love, like I feel like I am, and the situation I'm dealing with, it's actually a pretty beneficial kind of situation to find yourself in, that you could finally like escape this whole tax situation and get away from it. But until then, and of course, also the other benefit of Georgia is if you trade crypto, it's treated as a currency. It's not treated as a security, which means that if you withdraw crypto, for example, to a place like GE Crypto, you pay by standard 0%. There's other things too, like I recently discovered during my trip to Batumi. You can actually go to certain places that will enable you to withdraw crypto without even providing KYC. So, I mean, if that's an issue, you might pay 1.8% on your withdrawal, but who cares compared to the tax, right? They don't ask for your passport. They don't ask for your information. I asked this Russian woman who was managing this exchange, I said, hey, like, I'm withdrawing $2,000. This was no problem, but like, what if I wanted 10,000 or more? And she told me, she said, for you, no limits. And I tell you, there has never been a more sexy thing, Robin, I have heard in my entire life than what that woman said to me. Like, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I fall asleep at night sometimes. It's the last thing I think of. But like, there's definitely.
I just had the vision of you like stroking a big Ethereum dildo. You're just like.
It's a beautiful country that we're in. Like it's wonderful, and I think for anyone who's trying to escape the pains of what's happening in America and otherwise, I think it's great. Again, I'm not advising anyone to break the law. That is not the point. We're discussing ideas here. That's literally all that we're doing. I'm just saying that there's opportunity in Georgia. There's freedom here. There are people who think differently. There are people willing to help you, and that's what I do. Is I help people navigate these structures. I help them set up offshore infrastructure. Some clients I had from Romania, they weren't even worried about the tax factor. It was just they had an exchange, and they were literally like, if I was to set up this exchange in Romania, I would be not even a tax issue, but I don't even know if I could exist here because of the regulation, because of the issues, etc. So why don't I set up offshore to have a little bit more freedom in my ability to do business? That's what's really great about Russia, or sorry, Georgia. I'm sure it's great to be a Russian citizen, but what's great about Georgia in terms of incorporation. The other aspect as well is when you come here, if you don't know someone who knows the space, you can be taken advantage of pretty easily. I had somebody who tried to sell me a $20,000 lawyer because they told me that I needed a VASP license and I needed a camera with an office that was a certain size. And I found out that what they were confused about was they were trying to present me as a centralized entity that would take cash for crypto. And I said, no, I work with decentralized exchanges. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't need a camera and an office and a VASP license. And I was able to shut them down. But like people will try to take advantage of you and think you have to spend thousands of dollars for an LLC that like you can get for under $100 and you'll have it the very next day. Bank incorporation takes.
That quick, huh?
What's that?
The process is that quick.
It is. You if you pay double, so like maybe a couple $100, you can get an LLC same day. But you can literally pay like under $100 and get your LLC next day. It's a little bit more money when you factor in factors like, I need to have. I'm an American. I'm speaking English. I need someone to be a translator. I have all the resources to basically get that handled. But again, it's like $300 or less is the actual flat rate, to actually get these things incorporated, even if you're trying to get it done the very next day. And then basically what I provide on top of that is the consultation, the assistance with the business setup. And that's where you'd rather have that than work with somebody who doesn't speak the language, who's just going to try to do it bottom dollar for you, but isn't going to advise you on things like, the common reporting standards, CRS, that exists in Europe. FATCA, that's the agreement between Georgia and America, where they have to report banking activity and LLC ownership. So these are things you need to know if you're going to be incorporating offshore to make sure you're compliant, or at least if you're trying to be private in certain ways, you know how to do certain things, not again for tax avoidance, tax mitigation, and privacy, because people have the right to privacy. It's what they do with their privacy that matters. So I always try to tell people I help you to be private, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. I just give you the advice to be able to do whatever you want to do, and that's on you. So that's essentially like the whole overarching situation there. The thing that's harder here in America is actually bank setup. I tried to get set up with Bank of Georgia for various LLCs, and I had a little bit of issues with that because if you try to set up too many at once, they'll ask you a bunch of questions and they might not set up any of them. I've had more success with TBC Bank, where they'll generally ask you to set up an individual account and then LLCs after the fact. But I'm at the state now where I'm established. I have running a personal account with them. If I wanted to set up LLCs for clients, I can definitely do that. You sign a power of attorney. I get it set up for you. I set up your business. And then once everything's done, I just transfer it to you. So it's very simple and easy to do. Just takes maybe a week or two for them to actually approve it, which is different than America where they just approve it same day.
Would there be like a benefit for somebody who wanted to stay in the US but try and like incorporate over there basically?
Yeah, I mean, there could be various things. I mean, it could have to do with depending on the ownership of the LLC. There could be tax benefits, and that's an important thing that I can't get into fully here. But basically, based on the ownership of the LLC and how you pay out individuals, you could have extreme tax benefits by incorporating overseas. There's also regulatory benefits. So here, like you have people that will set up a hookah lounge inside of a hotel, and there's not all the fucking like regulations or issues that you'd have in America, right? And I'm not going to get into the safety and all those things. I'm just saying that there's less regulation. It's easier to do. So if you were just simply a person who's trying to set up a crypto exchange, for example, you'd have a lot less hurdles just setting up the LLC in Georgia than you would in America. So that's like one benefit. And depending on how you set up the money movement, you could actually mitigate your taxes substantially. But again, if you are the owner, you have to keep in mind they will report because of FATCA that you're the owner of the LLC. If you have a bank account there, they will report that you're the owner of the LLC. So the ownership is where things get a little bit more complicated as to how you set things up for the best tax mitigation. But what's nice about Estonian model is you don't really pay taxes on something until it's realized, right? So if you have money that's sitting in an account, you could use it for the benefit of the business. You could have it sitting as capital, right? It's the minute you pay it out as a dividend, you're supposed to pay taxes on it. You know, so that's kind of like one of the benefits that exists here versus America. You can kind of like look at profits a little bit differently than you would in America and pay taxes on them a little bit differently because you're saying, this is my working capital. This is what I'm using to improve my operations versus like, I just withdrew this. It's in my checking account, but I'm not using it. Well, I'm supposed to pay a tax on it because it's realized gains at this point.
Could you essentially like have the company give you a loan against your shares technically?
Potentially. I mean, you'd have to look at
your shares have potential value essentially, you know, depending on like the liquid assets you have. So
yeah, I mean,
you can be like, oh well, I'm going to have the company give me a loan, you know, at 1% or something like that, and then I'll pay that back with 1% interest.
Yeah, I mean, you would just have to establish business credit like you would anywhere else. One of the things that's a little bit different I've noticed about Europe and Georgia and this side of the globe in general is that while we're really used to unsecured debt in America, not just because there's a lot of interest you can charge on it, but there's interest in keeping people slaves to their debt. Mm-hmm. They'll loan out money to you based on perceived value, whereas here it has to be loaned out on actual value. People don't go in debt to things they can't pay back here as much as they seem to do in the States, at least from my experience.
I've heard that that's pretty different.
Yes. Yeah. And it's hard to comment on it fully because I don't have credit here. I haven't dealt with this personally, but from what I've heard from other people, it's not like people are going in debt to their credit, to their theoretical value. Yeah, it's literally like, I have this value, and if I can't pay it, you're going to take it from the collateral that I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I think I had heard, like, when I was listening to some stuff from Shawna a little while ago, that, you know, they don't have credit in the same way that we do in the States. It's not as big of a deal. So as long as you have the means to take care of it, you're not going to have a credit score following you around dictating how your life will be, you know?
Like, yeah, I wouldn't see, based on the tax structure they have in Georgia, there being a great value in taking a loan against your value versus just withdrawing what you need. because of how well the tax structure is. You also have to keep in mind, if you take away the idea of you're an American citizen and you're paying American tax, let's just say you're Russian or you're Georgian. Georgian would be the ideal situation, right? You're a Georgian citizen. You can trade crypto tax-free, withdraw it at 0% interest. You're a Georgian citizen. If you own a Georgian company, you're paying either 15% plus the 5% dividend. Or, here's the interesting thing. What if you had a small business like account, a small business incorporation, and you're paying 1% on it? And what if your LLC was paying its dividend to that 1%, right? I would think that would be a better way to basically realize your gains. You could combine like having a business be a payee of the LLC at 1%, and you would basically be minimizing tax as much as possible. I just know that there's ways to kind of combine these structures to basically minimize the tax that you would essentially have. The part where it gets complicated is your tax obligations to other countries. And what I advise people about is basically like I talk to them in the context of privacy. It's like, I'm not telling you what to do with your privacy, but I can advise you on how to be private, okay? If you're in America, you should pay your taxes. And nothing I'm saying today is telling people not to pay their taxes, but people have various reasons to want to be private. It doesn't have to be that they're trying to avoid paying their taxes. It could be they're going through a divorce, you know what I mean? And they're not legally yet obligated to disclose everything to their soon to not be partner, but they don't want them to know everything about all the assets they have. That could be a reason for privacy. It could be an issue with a former business partner. It could be various means, you know what I mean? So there are ways to be private. There are ways to leverage international banking to mitigate your taxes, to benefit yourself from being private, and to look at yourself as a global citizen to extend the most value out of your relationships with various banks, various countries, cryptocurrency, decentralized finance, etc. And that's kind of like the area that I've been exploring being here, is not just how to be free myself, but how to show other people how to be free to maximize their value.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's pretty much the gist of everything that I wanted to cover today. I mean, did you have any other questions you wanted to go over?
I don't think so at this point. I think we covered a whole lot more than I thought we were going to.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad that we got to cover everything we did. It was a lot of fun. Shawna was great. I love that she was able to cover like various countries. I hope that I can have her on again and we can have her on even longer. I think that's really valuable and important that we got to cover everything that we did. So I'll go ahead and wrap up, and thank you again, Robin, for your time today and another great episode of DeFi Expectations.
Good chatting. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.